Okay, moving on. This is chapter 4, part 2, more on the different things found within the cells. Moving on to vesicles. A couple of different types of vesicles include lysosomes and vacuoles. So the lysosomes actually butt off the Golgi apparatus as a vesicle. These lysosomes actually contain enzymes that help to digest food particles, and also they will work at protecting the cell against invading microorganisms. Um, Also, the lysosomes participate in the removal of cell debris and damaged tissue. So, like old, died off cells that have died off or been damaged, they will remove those. They're kind of like the trash trucks. Vacuoles are membrane-bound sacs that contain fluids or solid particles. Um, these vacuoles are found in phagocytic cells, so like a macrophage will have vacuoles, and if it's engulfed, if the macrophage has actually engulfed certain substances in the cell, the these vacuoles will contain those. Sorry, had a moment there. The contents of the food vacuole are digested through a merger of the vacuole and the actual lysosome. So here's just a picture of lysosomes during phagocytosis. I'm not going to ask you to necessarily regurgitate that to me. Moving on to the mitochondria, these guys are the powerhouses of the cell, just like any other cell. They generate the energy. They're composed of smooth, continuous outer membrane with an inner folded membrane. Those folds on the inner membrane are specifically called cristae, so make sure you know that because I'm certain that's a test question. The cristae hold the enzymes and electron carriers of aerobic respiration. So we're talking about eukaryotic cells, not bacteria. These types of things are different in a bacterial cell. So extracts chemical energy contained in the nutrient molecules and stores it in the form of high energy molecules, or ATP. So, when we're talking about making ATP making ATP, remember we're starting with, in a eukaryotic cell, say we eat, say we're talking about we have to eat something and our body breaks it down and breaks it down and breaks it down to the smallest usable parts. And those usable parts are then broken down, and energy is harvested from that, essentially. All right, so here is a mitochondria. Kind of looks like a little bug, maybe, but you can see it's showing the cristae, those inner folds. Okay, and those will have some ribosomes on them. And then you can see the outer membrane, and you can see some DNA hanging out in the mitochondria also. So not only is there DNA in the nucleus of a cell, but remember that there is DNA in the mitochondria as well. So you may have to identify parts of the mitochondria on the test. So be aware of those parts. Chloroplasts, I think this is the only part we'll ever talk about, the only slide we'll ever talk about chloroplasts. They're found in algae and plant cells, and basically gives the cell the ability to convert energy from sunlight into chemical energy through photosynthesis. Produce oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis. Chloroplasts actually resemble mitochondria, but they're larger and contain special pigments. Ribosomes. Hopefully you feel pretty confident that you know what a ribosome is by now. But when we're talking about eukaryotic cells, these are distributed throughout the cell, scattered freely in the cytoplasm, attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and also appear in mitochondria. Cytoskeleton basically kind of the same idea as our skeleton. Anchor organelles, permits shape changes and movement. Um, Three main types of cytoskeletal elements: actin filaments, intermediate filaments, and microtubules. And I'll be honest, I can't remember if I put this on the test or not, so be familiar with the types of cytoskeleton elements. Just a little picture there of those filaments showing. You're not going to have to ID anything in a picture. Components and characteristics of each organism type. So basically the function or the structure, the characteristics, and then whether or not they are found in specific cells. This is just kind of like a reference sheet. You don't have to get too excited about this slide. Fungal cells, we will pick up on fungal cells in the next part, in part 3 of chapter 4.